Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 4Player Network's Audible Impressions. I am your host, Jeffrey DeMello, an editor at 4playernetwork.com, and with me, 4Player Podcasts host, Nick Henderson. What's up, Nick?
Hello, I'm tired. I'll just give you a slight warning. I just woke up. and after a night of drinking and sleeping for about 4 hours, I'm going to do my best to sound intelligent on this pod.
So we're here to talk about Far Cry 3, which is Tuesday's newest release and quite frankly the last big release of the year. I mean, just to start things off, I'm a big fan of Far Cry 2. I didn't like...
That's good. I was just going to say, because I thought I was kind of alone in that sentiment, because I love Far Cry 2. It's probably in my at least top 20 games of all time. It's pretty damn good. Can we start by just kind of saying which platforms we're playing on? Because I know a lot of purists out there are going to be like, you have to play it on PC, but we're both playing the console versions, right?
Yeah, I'm playing on PS3,
and I'm playing on the Xbox. But now, with that said, and certainly there is a noticeable difference between the PC version and the console versions on a visual level. I do want to say it's still a good-looking game, even on a console. It has some muddy textures here and there or whatever, and it definitely doesn't look as next gen as, say, the PC version.
Yep.
But it's a good-looking game, and the world they've created is really fun to explore, and I think a lot of that could be attributed to just how good the game looks.
Right.
Now, a lot of people are probably going to just judge it, be like, "Oh, that looks like crap," because they're comparing it, obviously, to the PC version, which is what they've been showing everywhere. They showed it at E3. They had nothing but PC versions set up. All the demos they've been showing at conferences and stuff, those have all been PC version. So it sucks to be following a game for so long and then have it come out and then technically play the inferior version.
Right.
The game looks really good. It's a beautiful world and really fun to explore. So, and I guess that's where I'll start. I mean, Far Cry, at least since Far Cry 2, because I don't remember how open Far Cry 1 was, but Far Cry 2 was huge world.
Yeah.
And it felt, alive to a degree in 2. There are some things that were missing that are present here, like the presence of wildlife. There was not much wildlife to say in Far Cry 2, but in this game, it's everywhere. There's something like 40 or 50 species of animals that you can just find throughout the world, and you can hunt them, and they can attack you, and you can even use them in combat to, you can lure tigers into groups of crowded enemies and have him attack the enemies, and that stuff is really cool, and it adds a certain element of strategy to the combat, which is pretty cool. I guess the one thing that really strikes me as much better, as a big improvement over the second one, is because everyone complained in the second one about the respawning enemies. You could literally drive 30 seconds past the camp and then turn around and drive back, and all those enemies would have respawned.
Right.
Which was really frustrating, and it kind of breaks the illusion or the realism of the game. But in this one, when you take over an encampment, it not only frees up that camp, but it also it allows the surrounding area to be the group or the soldiers that you kind of side with, I guess, in this game, move in and take over the camp themselves, and it happens almost instantaneously. You clear out a camp, and all of a sudden 30 seconds to a minute later, you'll see these jeeps come rolling in with your guys, and they jump out of the jeep, and it's there to hold down the fort.
Yeah, and the first time they did that, I started shooting at them because I was like, "Oh shit, reinforcements!"
Here, but they've added a bunch of other elements to it. Yeah, much more than that this time around. So you have a whole bunch of really great RPG elements, which are cool. There's that, every time you kill a dude, you're getting experience. And it has a little bit of that little Borderlands 2 effect, so when you kill a dude, you see little experience points pop up, and you're like, okay. And you can kind of monitor your character's progression, and you have 3 different skill trees, and the abilities that you unlock are pretty diverse and fun.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, by the time you finish the game, most people will have actually unlocked all of them. So, real quick, tell me about how you're playing the game, because I thought this was pretty interesting, because it's not anything like how I'm playing it.
Okay, so the thing I like about this game it's designed like very well to keep things flowing, keep the game flowing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're going to another location, there's so much that's so accessible for you to go do that you tend to go do them, you know? And so you're flowing from like this objective to this little side thing to, you know, maybe capturing this camp to go into your story mission, and then from there, you know, you might unlock or destroy the, you know, radio tower, and then the radio towers in this game, for anyone not familiar, they pretty much stole a little bit from Assassin's Creed, where you unlock the map, or the fog of war, quote unquote, of the map gets cleared when you take over a communication or a radio tower.
Yeah, and they're like these. Each one is kind of like this mini platforming challenge. Not really, I mean, but it's always like they're all a little bit different, and because they're all like dilapidated and falling apart, so you have to figure out the best way to climb to the top of it. And those are actually really cool moments. I love them too, because you're climbing and it gets really quiet, and all you can hear is the wind blowing and the metal creaking as you're climbing it, and that stuff is just permeating the game, and it's really cool. But then when you get to the top and you activate the communications tower, it does the whole Assassin's Creed thing where the camera pans around and you can see the area, and it's cool though. It actually marks the landmarks. It shows you the landmarks that are within the range of that tower, of like interesting places you can visit, and there's always things to do when you go to those places, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
but so I'm playing the game. Very stealthy right now. Like, I don't know, this year just feels like I just came off Hitman, I just came off Mark of the Ninja, like Dishonored was recently, and like this one, I guess I'm still kind of like going with the flow of that. And because it's possible to play stealthy, I'm kind of testing the waters with it and see exactly how far I can stretch the gameplay on two different scopes. You know what I mean? So
you, like, as you described it to me, you're playing Rambo style.
Yeah, I'm playing knife and bow. Like, I have.
I don't even have a bow and arrow yet.
Yeah, you have to unlock it. You have to buy it. It's in the stores.
Is it fun and satisfying to use the bow?
It is, because it has arrow drop, right? So you have to like judge the distance of your arrows, and as you become more comfortable with shooting the bow, you can judge, you know, the drop of the shot. So, for example, I was on this cliffside overlooking an encampment, and I cleared the whole thing out. There's 5 guys. I cleared the whole thing out without anybody seeing me, just with the bow. And like the first shot was the farthest one. Like, I wanted to take this crazy long shot, and I was literally like on screen. The reticle was like an inch or 2 inches above the dude, you know. I just took a crazy like guesstimate, you know, shot, and I just fucking launched an arrow, and I hit him dead in the head, and it was like I just stopped for a second, and like I started smiling and laughing to myself, because I'm like, that was so much more fun than shooting the dude, like putting him in my crosshairs and shooting him, you know. So after that, which was like one of the first encounters I had using the bow, I automatically became addicted to using it, and I just kind of went with it. Now, I've gone to using guns. Like, if I've used up all my arrows, for example, I'll go and use a gun or pick up a gun. But I try and stay silenced. Like, all the guns I do have in my shop right now, I silence them all, you know. Yeah. I'm trying to be as quiet as possible.
That's really cool. I'm going to bust out a bow and arrow today and try it out.
Yeah, I'm not going to... When it starts losing its magic, I'm gonna probably just start fucking with different guns, you know, because there's so many ways to approach the game, and I think that's one of the best, like, the thing I like most about Far Cry 3 is that it's very, like, they want you to sit back and consider your approach. They give you a camera in the game, which you can kind of mark enemies off with when you look through it, and it helps like make the game very approachable, and it benefits you if you're playing that way with stealth, because I can just sit up top on a cliffside and scan an entire base camp and figure out exactly which way I want to approach taking over that camp. And for the most part, there's a lot of ways. Like I've done some really cool different things with how I'm approaching the game. But were you just running and gunning?
Kind of. I've been kind of taking each mission or each situation as it comes and just kind of seeing which one I think would work best. I did a stealth mission yesterday, which probably didn't have to be played stealthily, but it's cool. But what I was gonna add, I think one of the coolest additions to this game, which is kind of funny, is the ability to throw a rock.
Yeah.
Which
is that Hitman coin thing?
It's made certain. It's allowed me to get through certain scenarios stealthily, or at least even sneak up on people that I wouldn't necessarily be able to normally sneak up on, just by because you can basically you press right on the D-pad and he tosses a rock at your reticle, so you can throw a rock off around a corner or whatever, and a guard that's nearby will hear it and then go to examine it, and you can sneak by him or you can sneak up behind him and take him out. So that's really cool. It's really simple, but it adds a nice little touch to the strategy of getting through areas stealthily. I also want to say the marking with the camera is really helpful too, especially not even from afar, but when you're close up, when you're actually moving through a camp. If you're trying to be stealthful, whatever in the game. I just lost my vocabulary there.
That's okay.
Because as you mark the enemies, you see like little shadows of them, kind of, even if you're behind a wall, you can kind of see them moving through walls once you mark them, because you have a sense of awareness of where they are in the map.
Yeah.
So you can mark them before you ever go in, and then once you're in, you can move through the camp and know kind of where you are in relation to all the enemies, even if you don't have a direct line of sight with them, which is pretty cool.
Right.
And once again, all these things kind of add to the accessibility of it and open up the freedom to kind of approach any situation the way.
Right. And to be fair, like, we could talk probably for an hour on just the things I like. This is a big content-heavy game. Yeah. I think I'm like 8 hours in now at this point, and like I'm just enjoying being in the world, and it's green and it's pretty and it's so vibrant and it feels different than.
And there's stuff to do. It's a shooter with things to do.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Like yesterday, I just randomly decided to try one of the I forget what they call them, the trials of something. But you unlock these random things on the map, and then
the stones.
Yeah, these giant stones.
Which
and
is cool. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but what makes them super cool to me is that the leaderboard, the person that's on the top of the leaderboard for that challenge, quote unquote, their screen name is posted on the stone, which the challenge is. So that's super cool.
Yeah, that's a really nice touch. But basically, when you activate the stone, it takes you to it just loads a nearby. Usually, it's near an encampment or something like that. So it loads the encampment separately, and it gives you a random weapon, and it says kill as many people as you possibly can in the time limit. And then it breaks down the points by, like, you get this many points for killing this kind of enemy, this many points for another, and you get bonus points for headshots or for blowing them up, or stealth kills get you a bunch of extra points, whatever. But none of it has any effect on your single player game, so you're not wasting all your ammo, you're not losing health. It literally it loads separately, and then it just says go, and there's tons of enemies, and it gives you a random weapon, sometimes weapons you haven't even played with yet. Like, I played with a gun yesterday that I'd never played with.
Yeah. And
I must have done it like 7 or 8 times, just because I was like, God, this is fun. Like, sometimes after a while of sneaking through the world or just kind of exploring and sightseeing and stuff like that, and it's kind of it can be a slower paced game sometimes, but all of a sudden you come here and it's like you're kind of itching to shoot something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, this is fun, and then all of a sudden it's just fucking wild and crazy, but you don't have to worry about any of that stuff like losing resources or anything, which is super cool and addicting. And then like just throws in the leaderboard stuff so you can kind of see where your friends are, and you can try to beat their scores, and it's just a really addicting and cool way to kind of let you play with the game systems without worrying about stuff.
Right. The animals, by the way, just for our audience sake, they're mainly in the game to support the crafting system, which you use animal skins and stuff like that to upgrade your like pouches, your holsters, and a ton of other stuff in the game. And there's a crafting system which is awesome. I any system like that adds something more to the game is always like welcome. It can never be a negative unless it becomes something that you are required to do. We didn't even bring up story.
That is true.
And I really kind of, the voice acting and the writing in this is fucking superb, I feel.
Yeah, I would agree with you with everyone except for the main character, the guy you play as. His voice is kind of not the best, but everybody else, all the supporting characters are freaking awesome. Voss, the villain, is awesome. The doctor is awesome. But one of the complaints I've heard from other people who've completed the game is that the story doesn't quite pan out as well as it doesn't maintain the strength throughout.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of nervous about that, but there's a lot of people want more out of a game like this, as far as story goes, and I've always been the kind of like, as long as you deliver a kind of a thrill ride for me, and there's a villain and there's a payoff at the end, like I get to take out the bad guy, like I'm usually pretty satisfied.
Okay, so dislikes.
Let's get the obvious one out of the way, which I would say has to be the and once again, I preface this with in the first segment in which I said the game actually looks great, but goddamn, I've been watching the PC demonstrations for so long. When I popped this in, it took a few minutes or even up to an hour for me to kind of adjust and realize, okay, this is not a PC game. This is not Crysis. It definitely looks like an Xbox game.
Yeah.
This is not going to win any awards for being the most technically beautiful game on the platform.
No. I think we should say this just before we really start tackling dislikes about the graphics. There's not a lot of loading, and the game is kind of fairly seamless. Like when you walk into a building, it doesn't load. Like you just open the door and walk in.
And it's on one disc. I want to say.
Yeah, and it's on one disc. So they kind of get a little slack from me because of that. Because there really isn't a lot of loading screens once you're out in the main environment. But yeah, the graphics, at least on the PS3 version, like there's something with the shading, and I tweeted this, and I tweeted a picture of it. There's something about the shading, like it's so scratchy. It looks like there's like this scratchy texture over everything, and I'm not sure what it is. Like I've seen it before in like certain situations in other games, but I mean everything has this like, it feels like this an overlay,
Yeah, it's like this gritty shadow overlay.
It's weird, and it really like distracts me. Like I was in a hut, and it was nice and shadowy, and like I'm looking around, and like it should be like really, really beautiful, but like it just looked scratchy. Everything looked so scratchy. The shadows and the shadows that blend into like the light were wicked scratchy and like jaggy, and it was just like but it is a giant world, and like we were saying, it there's not a lot of loading, so I could kind of see where like the limitations of this console generation are beginning to really like affect that.
Yeah, it does definitely seems like a late entry on a late Xbox game or a PS3 game, but So it looks really great. It's a beautiful game. It's fun to explore. But if you look at it side by side with the PC version, it definitely there's a disparity there.
Yeah.
The water effects aren't quite as good. The shadow effects aren't quite as good. The textures are a little muddier. The draw distance is much shorter.
Yep.
But once your eyes adjust to that, like everything else about the game really is beautiful and fun to explore. So.
Yeah. So I think that most notably for anybody who's a fan of Far Cry 2, your guns don't jam, they don't break like they did in Far Cry 2, and I like that about Far Cry 2. It adds tension to the game, and that's this game's biggest flaw to me. Is it really lacks tension. When you die, there's not a lot of like tension about dying, because when you die you like load right outside of a camp. So the checkpointing is great, which is wonderful, but in a game like Far Cry, I need more consequence to death. I need it to be more like, I really don't want to die because I don't want to have to drive back here or whatever,
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of consequence for that, and that's disappointing. And that in itself lowered the tension value for me. But then they took out the mechanic of having, dirty guns and guns jamming and stuff like that, which was another thing in Far Cry that really I liked, because if in a situation where I had to pick up a gun off the ground, like knowing that like shit, this gun could jam at any moment and I'm gonna be fucked, like that tension, I wanted that tension, and I have yet to get it with Far Cry 3.
Real quick, is the fire propagation in this game again? Like, will fire spread?
Yeah, crazy too, because I threw a grenade into a camp, and then I had to run in to go get something, and I accidentally like threw the grenade right outside the building that I was supposed to go into.
Yeah.
And the whole fucking thing catches fire, and so then it was this like mini game of me trying to creep through this fucking blazing camp as I try and get to like a briefcase or something that I was trying to collect, a key from the hut, which I made a bad mistake of throwing a fucking Molotov, or a grenade rather, outside, and it started a fire. So there is fire. I haven't seen a lot of it, but the world is huge, so I'm sure there's gonna be more situations where like maybe you run into like dudes with flamethrowers later or something,
Oh yeah.
I wanted the real-time map back.
Oh yes, like when you're driving and you pull up the map.
Yeah, the idea, again, the immersion of that, and again, tension. You want to look at your map to know where you're going, but you don't know if there's an animal coming your way or an enemy coming your way, and it is more possibility for more tense moments because of that. And them taking this away, I get it. I'm sure most people that played Far Cry 2, outside of like the core, were like, what the fuck is this? Like, why is this like this? Why doesn't the game pause?
Yeah.
But again, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, like that no pause, adding to the tension of going through your menus and stuff in real time, knowing that anything at any moment could get you while you're doing that stuff, would have been really, really, really cool. Same thing with the crafting. If you had to craft in real time, that's so much better, because I can, again, for them easing the game down, when I'm dying and I don't have a syringe, I'll just go into my menu, which pauses the game, and I'll craft, a bunch of healing syringes, and then, I'll unpause the game and hold triangle, and it'll, heal me up. That real-time map stuff and that, like, real no-pause thing, like, I really wish was more, present here.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm really just trying to think. I mean, clearly there's not a lot to
Not a whole lot to dislike yet.
To dislike at this point. Yeah, I mean, if you really like, you know, sandbox games and you're a fan of, you know, shooters, yeah, this is
kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, this is the game for you. And you know, it's got the user options of how you approach. You know, the approachability options are high, and the things to do are high if you're someone that you know, tends to be a completionist, which I'm really not. I kind of do things as I'm interested in them, and then when I stop being interested, I just stop doing it, you know?
Yeah.
I kind of take it for what I want out of it. But
yeah,
so far, so good. I think everyone should definitely play it if you're into, you know, Far Cry in general, or shooters in general, or open world. I mean, it kind of bleeds into so many, like, genres that you can really, there's something for everybody in this game. You know, if you want to play it stealthy, you can. If you like crafting stuff, it's there. If you like collecting stuff, there's plenty to collect. If you like to explore, it's there. So I mean, if
you like shooting dudes in the face, it's definitely there.
It's there. And if you like swimming underwater and finding hidden caves like Brad, it's there. It's definitely there. And the second, like the first 2 hours when I played it, I stumbled onto that. It's an early game mission where you have to dive underwater to go to a cave. And the first thing I thought was like, man, Brad's gonna fucking flip his lid.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He's gonna be like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know? Hopefully there's enough of that for him in there. Or I'm hoping that during the next podcast he talks, or maybe in the process of him playing, he goes and searches for more of that stuff. Because while I am stumbling upon stuff like that, like, I'm not going out of my way to find it. And I hope someone kind of does, so I could, like, maybe hear a cool story of, like, oh, I found this, like, you know, ship that was in a cave or something like that, you know, and then I can go out and find it, you know. Yeah,
we'll definitely be continuing the Far Cry 3 conversation on this week's podcast. We'll probably actually spend the entire first segment of the show talking about it. So,
yeah,
and I know me, Nolan, Chris, and Brad have all been playing it. So we'll talk at length. Maybe talk about some of the things we didn't cover too closely here, like the RPG elements and stuff like that. So.
All right, well, there you have it, guys. Don't forget to visit the website, 4playernetwork.com. We write articles there. We have some stuff coming down the pipe for end of the year stuff.
Yep, we got some video content in the works, and we have our usual end of the year award podcast we're going to record. So.
Yep. And you could follow us on Twitter. You could follow 4Player Podcast at 4Player Podcast. You can follow me at Quality Beats 84, and you could follow Nick at
Nick H0630. Yes, very original. I want to change it, but I haven't done it yet.
But there you have it. We're enjoying the game, and you guys should definitely
check it out.
Check it out, and I'm sure you will enjoy it if you're anything like us. Thanks, Nick, for hanging out this early.
Of course. I love talking about games. It's fun.
Me too. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye, Nick.
Bye.